Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFT Statistics, coming at you from a hotel in Tampa Bay, Florida. Let's get right into it though. Obviously a lot to talk about today. Massive sale in that Sotheby's auction with the Goose selling for $5.6 million, $6.2 million if you include fees. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Mainly going to talk a lot about sales today. I think it's a pretty sales heavy show, but there's more to it. We'll start off with a quick market overview. Volumes were up a fair bit over the past couple of days. Vast majority of the volume was on Blur, about 81%. And I've been showing you this chart for a while. Unfortunately, these volumes are not the good kind of volumes. On Wednesday, 97% of the volume on Blur that was over 1 ETH was sellers dumping into bids. 97%. That's the highest that metric has ever been. Over the past week, it's been around 95%, which is also the highest it has ever been for a week. So really a lot of volume, but it's really just people dumping into bids. And I think that blend wallet where people can dump with zero royalties just leads to a little bit more wash trading and just a lot more kind of fast activity all around the same price. In terms of where prices have been, large cap index was down again. Mid cap index was pretty much flat, not a whole lot of movement there. Did have a little bit of strength in Kampai Pandas. I think they announced a new addition to their team or a board member, advisor that was well liked by the market. VV Checks had a little bit of a rally as well. In terms of art projects, and obviously the vast majority of what we're going to talk about here was on the Sotheby's auction, just totally kind of over $10 million of sales there. But in terms of what happened on the secondary markets, there were a couple projects did more than 10 ETH of volumes: Archetypes, Ringers, Chromie Squiggles, Fidenzas, really the four main ones that were featured in the Sotheby's auction. Let's look at a few of these sales. Fidenza sold for 80 ETH. Really nice Fidenza. There were actually a couple Fidenzas, but this was the higher price one. Here we have a very nice ribbed very nice ribbed Chromie Squiggle, which sold for 55 ETH. So a really huge sale, but a really, really beautiful piece there. A Ringer sold around the floor at 42 ETH. And an Archetype sold for 10.4 ETH in the secondary market. But let's get to the big story, which is that the Goose sold for $5.4 million, $6.2 million after fees. It was the highest sale ever in ETH terms. I mean, obviously not in US dollar terms, but in ETH terms, it was the highest sale that we've ever seen in art blocks. Here it is. It was really fun to watch, kind of a live auction on Sotheby's. Went really, really quickly, and a bunch of pieces were auctioned, but landed at $5.4 million versus the estimate of $2 to $3 million. We know that Sotheby's is extremely overly kind of over the top conservative with these estimates. So I think that relative to estimates, nothing surprising, but still just a massive price for this piece. Looking at the top art blocks in history in ETH terms, this now is around 3,700 ETH when you include the fees, the highest ever, and by a long shot. The second most, this Fidenza sold for 2,500 ETH, and that was only for a majority of the piece. Is actually split between people, but 2,500 ETH for that Fidenza. That was the valuation. Third highest, this Ringer for 2,100 ETH. The fourth was actually the Goose. Last time it sold, which sold for 1,800 ETH, and then next another Fidenza for 1,000 ETH. So really, by far, the highest ETH sale of all time when it comes to art blocks. I think we all know that 6529, Punk 6529, who has both the meme cards, but also has a fund where he's managing money for other people, was the buyer here. Here he is tweeting out an image of the Goose. I do believe I have heard that he was also a buyer in the previous Grails auction, I believe for the Fidenza, not entirely confirmed, but I believe that's true as well. So clearly this fund is one of the biggest players when it comes to the high-end NFTs right now. As far as reactions from around the community to this, here's the Beeple every day. I think they're riding the Golden Goose image, drawing of 6529 with the Seize the Memes of production. You also have Vincent Van Dough. And Vincent Van Dough is an interesting player here because Vincent Van Dough is the person who bought these NFTs for Starry Night, for 3 Arrow Capital as well. And those are the NFTs that are being auctioned off right now. So he was the curator who bought these, I believe, in August of 2021. So kind of in the spotlight as well. Here he's saying, thanks for the kind words on today's sale. Obviously disappointing to watch the tumultuous path that this collection has taken. But then he kind of made an interesting point. He said the wealthiest collectors remain largely stuck in 2021 with little expansion of taste, which has led to a predictably stale culture. Moving forward, I hope to see more collectors expand their horizons and understanding of art and start supporting unknown artists and innovation. Now, what I think is interesting is that VVD, when I do a lot of interviews with artists for the Proof podcast, and when I talk to them about what really changed the trajectory of their career as artists, so many of them say that VVD buying their work was what really put them on the spotlight. Like VVD is really one of those collectors that can really elevate people. So I see a little bit of what he's saying, where he is one of the few people who's out there buying, you know, a lot of these early stage artists and really bringing them up, and wants other people to do that as well. You know, 6529 came back and said, I do both. I don't think this was necessarily directed at 6529 himself. 6529 clearly massive supporter of artists throughout the ecosystem. But I thought this was kind of a little interesting sub-dialogue in the dialogue that happened. Here you had a piece from Art News that also 6529 retweeted, kind of mocking the author here, saying that this is the last hurrah for NFTs. My basic take here is that, you know, I think that NFTs, when you look at one of ones, when you look at art blocks, when you look at PFPs, the vast majority has certainly been in a down market, you know, and we report on that every day on the show. I don't think this changes any of that. I do think that this piece and this sale is great for headlines. You know, when I did look at the headlines, most of them were kind of on crypto sites, but you also saw like Financial Times reporting on it and a few other big publications that were reporting on it. But the other thing I think is that, you know, when it comes to the top tier 1 Grail NFTs, those, you know, Derek always says these are a bit more de-risked. They have longevity, and you've had 5 to 10, 15 buyers who have stuck around and who have been buying them. So when people say, are we back? You know, I don't think that these buyers actually ever left. When you look at the VVD, 6529, Cosimo, Curated, you know, these funds have been spending money on high-end NFTs. So I think that this was kind of right in line with that trend that we've seen over the past year. Even in this bear market, the high-end has continued to sell quite well. I think also that, you know, are we going to get a huge rally here? I think that first, when that Fidenza sold for $1 million on the last Sotheby's Grail auction, that was a surprise. When you get surprises, you know, I think that's what leads to big rallies. Here, I think this was widely well known. I think people knew that a big sale was coming. So I think you get a little bit less of like a sympathy pump on the back of it, but we'll see what happens. Looking forward to it. Always never a dull moment in this space. In terms of other sales, we had a perfect spectrum squiggle. Every single color on the spectrum is in that squiggle. There are only a few of them. This one sold for 380 ETH. Now, interestingly, if you look on chain, if you look on OpenSea, there hasn't been a single perfect spectrum sale in a year and a half. The last one was in September 2021. The last one to sell went for 922 ETH, but the ones before that were 250, 235.90. They're just so few of these. So it's so hard to say what a predictable price for that was, but 380 ETH is really nothing to scoff at in this market. So a huge sale there. A lot of Fidenzas were in focus. Here are 4 of them. You can see one sold for 372 ETH. That was the top selling. One for 365, 144, 137. A lot of really unique Fidenzas that VVD picked out for this collection and had some big sales there. There were even a couple that I've not included here. And then one other piece I wanted to talk about was this cube archetype, which sold for 198 ETH. This surprised me. I think this was actually a very strong sale. If you look at the top archetype sales that we've ever had, the biggest one was this, which was sold for 420 ETH when VVD originally bought it. The next biggest one was 320 ETH, which is also owned by VVD. So VVD clearly likes these cube archetypes. But beyond that, you haven't had any sales in this collection above 135. You know, these corners for 135, 125, 125. So I think 198 was a really punchy price relative to the history of what we've seen in this collection. And that is pretty much, those are pretty much the ones I'm going to show you. I mean, there were a lot more art blocks. This was a really interesting auction with a lot of content, but those are the pieces that really stuck out to me. Third thing to talk about, and this is kind of a smaller story, but Ordinal Maxi Biz wants you to burn your punks. The Ordinal Maxi Biz, we've talked about, one of the best performing Ordinal collections out there, has a floor over 3 Bitcoin. Basically said, if you burn your punk, you will get on the allow list for getting an Ordinal Maxi Biz. Here is the founder, ZK Shark, basically yelling a bunch of stuff, saying, forget enforced royalties, forget VCs, the ETH Foundation is dumping on you, kind of going off a little bit. I thought it was a pretty weird tweet because, you know, punks are pretty famous for never charging royalties, no enforced royalties, no unenforced royalties. You can't pay royalties on punks. So saying forget your enforced royalties and burn punks, I thought was a bit of a weird statement. But anyways, kind of a good attention-grabbing thing. These tweets got hundreds of retweets and a lot of virality. Now looking at the price, if you burn a punk, you know, punks are, you know, recently trading in the 50 ETH range. The most recent trades on Ordinal Maxi Biz have been at the 48 to 50 ETH range. So kind of similar and interesting ranges. We'll see if anyone does it. I own 2 punks. Not going to be doing it, but interesting stuff. Lastly, let's talk about a few notable sales, and we'll try to go quick here. An Azuki Spirit sold for 189 ETH. there haven't been as many Azuki Spirit sales in the past month, but there was one on June 6th, a female one, which sold for 161. And then before that, kind of the bigger the prior Azuki Spirit sales have been in this 185 to 250 ETH range. So this one was just at the low end of that range. There was a You the Real MVP sold for 59 ETH. This is, most recent You the Real MVP sales have been a little bit below 50 ETH, but before that, we did have some sales in the 60s. So not the high, but certainly up from where we've been. I think people just want that top tier access to the meme line ecosystem ahead of the meme coin drop. You had a Blue Eyes OnChainMonkey sell for 16.69 ETH. The floor for OnChainMonkey is in the low twos. Why was someone spending so much on this? I think when you see the dimensions, you can use your OnChainMonkey to create a dimensions, hopefully if you're lucky, and the blue beams with these eyes, I think are going to be quite cool. Also a zombie fur, so a rare one will be interesting DNA to create a dimensions. Thanks to the people on Twitter who gave me that information. Now, dimensions we talked about on Tuesday extensively, but they minted, and we've had some huge sales in dimensions ranging from 0.9 to 1.5 Bitcoin. If you look at this one in the lower left, you can see the one with the laser eyes has a really cool impact with that 3D, kind of with this 3D art aspect. So I think that explains why these blue beams, that sale could be really cool, why someone wanted it, to see how this will look as a dimensions kind of in the 3D format. But a bunch of big sales, these minted for less than 0.1 less than 0.1 Bitcoin, and they've been selling for 0.9 to 1.5 Bitcoin. So congrats to whoever got them, 300 lucky owners. Awesome to see that. Just a huge win. People making literally 0.91 Bitcoin in a quick trade through that. Now, 300 were minted, but 2,000 more are going to be minted. There is a tier. They're going to be picked at random, but in order to make it more likely that you are going to get picked, there are a bunch of things you can do. Most of it involves owning a lot of OnChainMonkeys plus karmas. So we'll see how that goes, but there are 2,000 more coming that will go to OCM holders. Then in terms of one-of-one sales, just a couple to talk about. Precious Moments by Die With The Most Likes, one of the kind of hottest artists right now. This piece sold for 12 ETH. Here he is thanking the buyer, Artifaction 2, basically saying embracing and understanding the absurd being the glue in the bag we huff. A genuine dude through and through, a meat manager. So nice to see that. And then one other sale, this piece called We're Fine by Patrick Amadon, sold for 6.91 ETH. Really cool piece. Again, there's a lot of animation, goes through a lot of steps. Worth checking this one out in its video form. And here he is saying he's thrilled to add another Glitch God Master. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the collector, Anonymous, saying he's thrilled to add another Glitch God masterpiece to the collection. So Anonymous is the buyer there. Again, 6.91. Very cool. Love to see that. Here are a few top Patrick Amadon sales. Kind of has had a bunch of stuff in that range of 8 to 17 ETH. So this kind of fits right in there. And he's also been a pretty productive artist with a lot of stuff that has sold for lower, but these are some of the top sales. That is all from me today. I'll be back next week in Colorado with the show. We are not going to be doing a show on Monday because it is a public holiday, I believe, for Juneteenth at Proof, but we'll be back on Tuesday with another show. Look forward to talking to you then. Have a great weekend.